Dublin Airport has opened talks with airlines over an increase in passenger numbers that is taking the airport close to its 32 million passenger annual cap that previously led to planning complications. The DAA, which runs the airport, has reported more than 25 million passengers in the first 9 months of 2023 as travel returns to levels not seen since before the COVID shutdowns. I'm joined on the line to discuss this a bit more by Eoghan Corry, lead travel commentator in Ireland. Eoghan, good morning and welcome to the morning show.
Good morning, Adrian. Appropriately speaking from Dublin Airport, I'm waiting to check in here.
Where else would I expect you to be? So, Eoghan,
my natural habitat, yeah.
So you're there adding to the 32 million annual passengers. How likely is it, firstly, that the airport will breach that 32 million or at least come very close to it?
I think we're going to hit 33.5 million this year. That's where we are looking with a few weeks to go to Christmas. Very busy Christmas schedule coming up. The issue is that the 32 million cap is in place. We almost did it pre-pandemic. We're now back in those sort of levels, but I don't expect too much drama over Christmas. I do expect that a lot of debate will have to take place before we start facing into 2024. And, you know, you're looking at pre-pandemic Dublin Airport numbers growing about 16% a year. If we're going back into that level of growth, we're going to have a little bit of a spat on the planning side.
Okay, so just to explain to our listeners, the 32 million cap is a planning imposed cap by Fingal County Council, is that right?
It's interesting, it came from Board Planola, not from Fingal County Council. And it came way back when they applied for that second terminal. That's more than 10 years ago, it's about 13 years ago now. So it's a very old planning cap. It was sort of notional at the time. Dublin Airport generally every 10 years grows by 1.5 times the number of passengers. If we're going to continue to compete and the economy is continuing to grow, which all politicians hope it does, it will continue to grow as well. What the planning cap was a trigger for putting in a big infrastructure planning application. Terminal 3 was one of the things that was mentioned at the time. Maybe a third terminal was required. There are people who believe a third terminal is required. Some of them have been well publicised during the summer. But there's also a Dublin Airport say we can get by. What we need is to extend the North Terminal a little bit up where Ryanair have their flights, and an extra pier down in the South Terminal where Aer Lingus have their flights. Extra space for the US immigration, and then a road infrastructure. So they have that sort of plan with their architects at the moment, very complex. I'd expect it to go in end of November, beginning of December. And that will mean that they've met the plans, the requirements of the trigger for the 32 million. But will somebody start bringing action saying, oh, we must stop at 32 million? If that happens, then we're looking at cancelled flights at Christmas.
Okay, so you're predicting that we'll hit that the airport will hit 33.5 million passengers for 2023. Yeah. What is likely to happen then in terms of the way the council will, Fingal County Council will deal with this, or is it up to them to take action if that 32 million is breached?
I have no idea, because they put an enforcement order on the night flights in the summer and gave Dublin Airport 6 weeks. It's really Clint Eastwood, go on, make my day stuff. It's not the collaborative approach that you'd expect from a piece of major national infrastructure like Dublin Airport. So something similar might happen again. If that happens, we're back to what happened the last time, people going to court and making cases. There's no shortage of documents, plans, long-term plans, short-term plans, and economic impact studies about the amount of jobs, all of that stuff. But it's dicey enough because the Dublin Airport relationship with the planning authorities has been testy, you know, with noise, with the night flights, with the restriction of night flights, and also a separate issue on since the opening of the North Runway, the new North Runway. It's like the planning process was designed to deal with a troublesome takeaway, not a major piece of national infrastructure like Dublin Airport is.
Yes, I mean, they certainly are under the spotlight, and in fact, RTE did a whole prime time on it recently in terms of the flight patterns coming out of the new runway, and local residents continue to be up in arms over that.
Yeah, complaining about the noise, but an awful lot of those complaints are coming from one individual. I think 90% of the complaints about noise came from one household. So, you know, the residents are well placed in the debate, and they're good at amplifying the debate. That is not dismissing the noise concerns, but it does beg the question that if you're living next to an airport, you know, you've got to make allowances for the fact that the airport's been there since 1939, and the aviation industry and the airport will say that the overall noise is coming down because aircraft, even though there are more flights, they're certainly less noisy, about 20% less noisy with each new model. There would be no comparison between the new 737 MAX and the old 737-200.
In terms of the noise it generates.
A big roar when they took off. So, you know, there is this issue of residents complaining about noise while the noise is being reduced, even though the number of flights is going up.
Okay, and finally then, I mentioned in the introduction that the DAA has opened talks with the airlines over the increase in passenger numbers. What are those talks aimed at achieving?
The infrastructure process is going through, the big planning permission is going through, and they have to look at all eventualities. They've held talks with Aer Lingus and with Ryanair. 80%, let's face it, 80% of the traffic through Dublin Airport is with those two airlines. They're the major players here, and they're going to be the major players when the infrastructure plans are put in place, because both of them are the major carriers in the North Terminal, the Terminal 1, where Ryanair operate from, and where there's going to be an extension with new air gates, and then Terminal 2, where Aer Lingus operate from. So it's pretty much bringing them into the process. That's what ended up in the newspapers this morning. It's not abnormal, it's not unusual, it's not a sense of panic. I do expect us to get through Christmas, but the real issue here is this background of a non-collaborative approach between the planning authorities and Dublin Airport. I'd love that to be solved at some stage. I'm not sure there's a clear pathway as to how we could do that.
Eoghan Corry, lead travel commentator in Ireland. Thank you very much indeed, Eoghan, for joining us on the morning show.